Yeah. So welcome to our first live stream. We're gonna call the show TLDR, the Black Company. This is chapter 1, the Legate. But before we get into the actual novel that we're all such big fans of, why don't we introduce ourselves? Let's start with this guy to my left. We'll just call him DM.
Yes, my name is DM. I'm one of this guy's oldest friends. We've been kind of fantasy nerds as long as we know each other. So I guess maybe I should start on why I like, fantasy in general. And truth is, I'm not sure. I was just kind of born that way. It's really the only genre that's ever really super appealed to me. I think maybe the first novel I can remember. I mean, if you don't count Gru the Wanderer, or Savage Sword of Conan or stuff like that. The first novel, fantasy novel, I think I remember reading is by Joel Rosenberg. It's the Guardians of the Flame series. Fantastic novel, at least in my junior high mind. But that evolved over time. Read dozens and dozens and dozens of Forgotten Realms fantasy stuff. Dragonlance by Margaret Weiss, Tracy Hickman, fantastic novels. And this is something I've been able to share with this guy here over time. And the Black Company itself was introduced to me by a friend in Hanford, Washington. And I'd never heard of Glen Cook before, never heard of the Black Company. And he said it was one of the best fantasy novels he's ever read. And I put it on a stack of mini books, and I told myself I'd get to it one day. And when my friend here came to visit, I told him that it was a good book, even though I had never read it. So he ended up reading it. He denies that I'm the one that told him about it, but this is exactly how it happened. He read it and said it was a fantastic book and I should read it immediately. I should go out and buy one. And so I did, and I read it, and it was fantastic. And that's why we're here today. The end.
Da-dum. So, Uel.
Yes.
Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. My name is Uel. Hey there. I own a comic book store in Berkeley, California. I know exactly where my fantasy predisposition started was with my father. He always had Conan, Savage Sword of Conan. He had all the fantasy sci-fi books that were out during the time. I remember him distinctly reading and complaining about the Thomas Covenant series. He often read all the Shannara books, and paperback novels were all over the place. We had stores that we would go to and just spend hours. And yeah, he just talked to strangers about fantasy sci-fi novels all the time. And yeah, I'm a big fan. Probably about 15 years ago, maybe 20 now, I started getting heavy into fantasy books. I started with the Dungeons and Dragons, the WotC books, Dragonlance, without a doubt. And then Etienne showed me Game of Thrones, and that pretty much made me not ever read another Dungeons and Dragons book again. I really got into the Steven Erikson books, and after I got Lewel to read them, he told me about the Black Company, which is very similar. I'm into literature, and this is a perfect marriage of fantasy novel and literature. I'm really into the Black Company. There you go.
I am ATN. I go by Lewel Stamp online just because it's easier, and I run Paperback Goldmine on Instagram and Facebook and here now. I was a longtime employee of a used bookstore specializing in science fiction. Almost the entire time I worked for them, about 12 years, I ran the sci-fi section. And more recently, but still pretty long time, a lot of fantasy as well. Back in 1996, that was when I read The Game of Thrones. It was 2 months after it came out. I bought it for my birthday in September, read it over Thanksgiving holiday in 2 days, and it has pretty much ruined fantasy for me ever since. Not a lot stands up once you read a book like that, of that caliber. But importantly, it also made me keep going with fantasy and just be really, really particular. So finding stuff like Steven Erikson and finding stuff like Glen Cook, it's out there. It's just, not all fantasy holds that same line. But that's why we're here, because we all love the Black Company. And yeah, we're going to make a podcast about the Black Company, all 3 novels, 1 chapter per episode, unless that proves to be a little bit inconvenient, in which case we might up the number of chapters we do in a particular podcast. Scheduling will have to wait for the future. But why we're really here is that Uel suggested a couple of years ago that we do something with Steven Erikson's 12,000 page, 10 volume series. He wanted to do a podcast about that because there just isn't one. Same thing with the Black Company. There is not one available. And we love Steven Erikson just like we love Glen Cook. And Steven Erikson obviously read Glen Cook. And you'll know what I mean if you read both series. But we want to do that as well. We want to make a podcast about the Steven Erikson stuff. And we don't know what we're doing. So here we are right now cutting our teeth on the Black Company, which is just a much more manageable 3 books, maybe 1,000 pages. So that's what we're doing. That's why we're here. That's why we're creating this podcast. Out of love, and we want to learn. That's really what it comes down to. So, Uel, as concisely as possible, what is the Black Company?
All right. The Black Company is a mercenary company that, they're hired out to the syndic of this town called Beryl. They've been around for like a long time. They have historians that travel with them. And the Black Company that we're following is basically, the story is from that point of view. The historian.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, no.
No. Okay. Yeah, they're a mercenary group. They have a long and storied past. They're organized as a military structure with a captain, a lieutenant, quartermaster, platoon leaders, several wizards, and a historian that they refer to as an analyst. And that person is Croker in these novels, and he is the protagonist of these novels. Their number is not really revealed. The total number of people in the Black Company, we don't really know. We just know that it has to be in the hundreds. And they're working as a private police force for the Syndic, as Uel mentioned. And that's where the novel begins, in Beryl, Queen of the Jeweled Cities. There we go. All right. So we know where they are. We know what they're doing. Oh, and they've been there for several years, at least. And we know it's summertime, and it is hot. It is hot. All right. So chapter 1 is called The Legate. And if you had to look it up like I did, the definition can be a representative such as an ambassador, envoy, or delegate. And that is the most pertinent definition that was available for the chapter. And you'll see what we're talking about shortly.
No, I think that's a Roman word. It's a Roman title.
It is, but it doesn't, obviously, these people
could mean
Roman.
A lot of things.
Well, no, I mean,
a
legate is a legate, but it's not a Roman legate. We're talking about a generic legate. All right, so spoiler free, we're going to go through the first chapter in the order that it is revealed in the book. And we're going to just talk about it all the way through to the end. And then at the end, we will make some analyses and we'll talk at our freedom. We'll be able to run around, sort of stream of consciousness, etc. We can answer any questions that may show up in chat, etc. But shall we get started, guys?
Yes. Move forward.
All right, let's do this. All right, so the book opens up with a poisoning.
Wow. Well, let's okay, we need to setting a little bit better. They're in the city.
We already did all that.
No, we didn't.
They're in Beryl.
Yes.
It's hot. It's summertime.
Yes. But what we didn't talk about is
the book literally starts with poison.
Well, there's the preamble.
But why is somebody get poisoned? You have to preamble that. And the reason they got poisoned is because there's a conflict between the Black Company and what they call the blues, the urban cohorts. And the Black Company is a police force, where I guess the urban cohorts are an actual military. I'm not sure.
The Black Company is hired. The Black Company's purpose in Beryl is they are the personal military protective agency for the syndic, who is like the governor of the city, the governor of the city-state. He's a private bodyguard, essentially, or they are a private bodyguard for the
Secret
syndic.
Service.
Yes, they're in his express service because the military of the city is unreliable.
Yeah, but the urban cohorts don't want them there.
Well, of course not.
That's a ton of people for a Secret Service.
I would like my own private army.
You said there was hundreds, right?
There have to be.
They didn't specify, but I get the impression there's hundreds. Yes.
All right.
Yes, there has to be.
Well, not thousands, just hundreds.
We'll get to the reasoning for that at the very end of this little section, but many of the Black Company still exist.
So yes, the opening of the book is one of their crew gets poisoned.
Curly has a tummy ache.
And there were two. That's right. No, Uel is correct. There were two. That's right.
Well, there's two dead.
Well, they don't know until they cut open the first two that died.
Yeah.
They realize there's some poisoning going on.
Yeah.
But you're right, Curly comes in.
Yes.
So Croker does this highly sophisticated triangulation theory to find out exactly where these people were, what they ate, who they socialized with, and how they died, and who killed them, and where they got poisoned. Does that sum it up?
Yeah. Two of them died, and then Croker came up with a antidote, as it were, saved the third poison victim, and by the fourth one was able to not only save him but determine the source of the poison.
That's right.
So there's the poisoning. So immediately following the poisoning, Croker wants to go and report his findings to their captain, who is unnamed throughout the first chapter at least. And on his way to see the captain, we get a lot of scene setting for the city of Beryl. There's a discussion about the bay. There's the lighthouse in the distance. There's the mole, which he's not real clear about what that is. The city wall, how ancient the city is. He refers to it many times that the city is absolutely ancient.
Well, he does do some foreshadowing when he talks about how, like, lightning out of the blue.
That was the first sentence of the second paragraph.
Yes, exactly. About how lightning out of the blue destroyed, or at least half shattered, some magical wards on this ancient crypt. And he was using that as, I'm not sure if he was foreshadowing or backshadowing, because he did mention that, it's easy to read the signs after the fact.
Yes. Yeah, one eye's gift for hindsight. There were a lot of warning signs. We just ignored them.
So what I really like about this is it seems like it's starting off in a past tense situation.
Yeah.
And then we're going back even far, and then we're going back to what led up to this.
Which is, well, look at the movie Blade Runner real quick, and you've got the narrator speaking in the beginning, and then the story actually takes hold. That's exactly what Glen Cook is doing. He's establishing the narrator as your protagonist, who's part of the story, and then he's telling the story from the perspective of the protagonist.
Is this a version of 3 weeks earlier, or is it okay because it's the narrator telling us this?
Do you have a problem with it?
I do anytime 3 weeks earlier occurs.
Does he ever do it, though?
No.
I mean, that's just you being very rigid in the way that you like or dislike a book.
Well, I'm just interested in the way he's telling this. Like, from the very beginning, he's like, this portends of things to come.
He hints.
And then we're finding out what that's, and maybe it's just happening as it's happening.
But the difference is he's not, okay, so do you agree that it was stylishly done? Did it take you out of the story?
Not at all.
Not at all. It just leaves
the third time, fifth time reading it.
Oh yeah, it's my third time too. And yes, the book actually doesn't start with a poisoning. It starts with 2 pages of this kind of hindsight preamble where, as Philip says, he remembers all of these things. He enumerates all of the things that could be viewed as portents. and they just disregarded them or ignored them or didn't notice them. But in hindsight, he realizes it was the beginning, and some of the stuff is horrible, but it's only later that you understand the significance of a lot of the stuff, which is why I choose to ignore it in the beginning. This is why I started with the poisoning as opposed to the actual lightning strike, because you don't realize the significance of the lightning strike or the vultures ousting the eagle at the top of the paper tower. You don't understand what's happening until later on in the chapter. Then it makes sense. You know, like, that was a bad that was a bad sign. That was a really bad sign. People are gonna die, and they do. But yes, Philip's correct. I'm sorry, DM is correct. All right, so there's the scene setting and stuff. And while Croker is walking his way to go see the captain to tell him the horrible news that they're going to have to go and bust some heads, a ship arrives in the harbor. And it's not just any ship. It's a black ship. And it is massive. I believe it has 5 rows of oarsmen.
Yeah.
It has a huge black sail. And on it is an magically animated skull with fire behind its teeth and eyes, with a silver circlet around its skull, around the head of the skull. And that ship just rolls right into the harbor when he's on his way to go see the captain. There's not much else to say about that, I don't think.
No.
It's a thing that happens on the way.
It's not going to play a part in this.
But you got to interject, buddy. All right, so the next thing is as I refer to it, is the dust up at Mole Tavern. So the captain decides that they're going to go and they're going to see to these poisoners.
Yeah, but they only take like a dozen men. Is that right?
Yeah, they take.
It was a dozen plus
men. It's Mercy and Silent and like 10 other people or something.
They had 3 at the back door, 2 at each of the side windows. I know they only went in with 3 people. It was pretty minimal.
Well, it had to be 4.
Oh, 5.
5.
I think so.
Doesn't really matter. It wasn't many.
No. It's very few people. Uel, would you like to explain what happened?
Yeah, sure. So it's Croker, our narrator, and it's Mercy, who is described as a real jerk of a person, that never stopped taking the wings off of flies.
Yes.
And so he really gets off on it too. And he's kind of short. So it's like a little Napoleon complex or something. And then Silent doesn't say anything. And before they go to this place, Silent takes like half a day to go into the forest. And when he comes back, he comes out with a big sack. And so they go on into this tavern, Mole Tavern, and they're like, Varys, get your butt out here. And like, that's kind of how the dialogue is in this book. Again, one of the things I really like about it is just it reads like a book you'd want to read no matter what. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So they go in and they get this like grandfather out, and he's like, get your sons out here too. And he's like, why? And they're like, well, because of murder. 2 of poisoning and 2 attempted murders by poisoning. And everybody in the bar, like this one guy takes a sword out and he jams it in the table. And everybody's like getting really crazy because they're like, oh, if something's going down, it doesn't matter if we're involved or not. We're going to go along with, get taken down. So, and I should have said they came in with like, swords and shields already. Our guys came in with swords and shields out already. And, so basically some guy gets a drop on one of our nobody characters, our red shirts, and everything is going like tits up. And someone's like, I think it was Croker, or somebody's like, oh no, it had to have been Mercy. Mercy's like, hey, Silent, get this thing going, And so Silent does something, we don't know what. And that's a cool thing because Croker is our narrator, so he didn't see what. And at first I was like, oh, is this guy a magic guy? He doesn't talk, but he still casts spells and everything. But what you find out is he took like a hornet's nest, basically. And these things are big. And I forget what they're called, like bald-faced hornets, I think. Yeah, exactly. And so all the nobodies, all of the tavern's red shirts, they're out, and they're like not fighting. And then basically that's what happens. And then our guys take control, and I think Mercy gets messed up in that. He gets like the finger. No, that's not.
He just
yet.
got a nick. It was the red shirt got messed up, but nobody died.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was a funny part. So I was like, there's a scene in this one where the first guy of the Black Company goes down because he just got kind of shivved, and Croker steps up, and Mercy looks at him and says something like, "Oh, I can't believe, you're going to come up and do this? What do you think you're doing?" And Croker's like, "Yeah, I'm going to write you out. You're not going to be in the history at all." And he's like, "You don't ever skip out on information." That's cool stuff. I like that. So that's what happens at Mole Tavern.
Okay, so the thing that set it all off, though, was when he told the old man, the proprietor of the bar, restaurant, whatever, to go get his sons. Somebody tried to get out the back door, but the Black Company was at the back door already with 3 men.
Yes.
And then it started to get violent, and they could tell. And then it just cascaded from there. But essentially, they subdued everybody. And then one of the wizards did take a little peek around, and they found that there was a secret room underneath the tavern. And it had a large number of conspiring blues in the middle of a meeting. And they all got captured. Bloodless capture.
Mostly bloodless.
But they said the line stretched across the block, like it was a block-long line of prisoners that they start marching up to go see the Syndic, who is a red, by the way.
Yes, so 12 guys, or something like that number, captured over 100 of their antagonists in one swoop.
Yeah.
And that was like it was nothing.
Well, they did have the help of the Hornets.
Well, and a wizard.
And a wizard, definitely a wizard. Wizards don't hurt, right? It's nice to have a wizard. Okay, so they marched these guys, all 100 of them or whatever, up to go see the Syndic, and it is along that route.
Oh, yeah. That we see this figure, all in black, clad in black, face mask black. It's a Morian, is what it's called. Gloves black horse, black, everything.
Big black horse.
Big black horse. Very imposing person, even though I think they were described as lithe or very,
effeminate even.
Yeah, effeminate even, yeah. Although Croker does refer to that person as a he in that same sentence. So take what you will of that. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a little important to emphasize that the first time they see this Black Rider, it's these, like battle-hardened, brave, tough men are shaken, right?
Yeah, they're cowed by that person.
Actually, this Black Rider like radiates like fear, and they're all affected by it except for Silent. And Silent just stared him right in the eyes, and what Black Rider just like stared at him back, and they locked eyes, and Silent wouldn't back down.
Didn't back down, but Croker described him as diminished.
Yes. Diminished. That's great.
But important for later, it's also worth noting that Croker or somebody in the Black Company, the perspective from Croker was that these guys, the Black Riders' military entourage, which are riding up the road to go see the Syndic, they allow this rider to have the right of way. And they watch as he goes by with his entourage, but they assess the strength of this entourage as being slightly less than the Black Company.
Slightly.
Important. Nevertheless, they follow on their way up to go see the Syndic. And this capture, because they were the most conservative of the blues that were captured, the more antagonistic, the more anarchistic of the blues end up rioting, starting riots. and it goes bad from there.
Yes.
Violence in the street.
Essentially thousands of angry people without a leader.
Right. And in this process, I think he said that the Black Company, trying to stem the tide of chaos before they retreated into the keep, the Black Company lost over 100 men, and they could nary afford to lose one. So that was one of the reasons why we know there's at least several hundred Black Company members at this point in time. So there's rioting in the streets, and it's not good. But I seem to recall that there's more than just rioting in the streets. They start to hear screaming, and it's like, that's not the screams of somebody being torn apart or murdered. That's the screams of a beast of some kind, a creature. And I think this is the second time we're brought to the word Forvalaka.
Yeah. What is a Forvalaka?
Well, Forvalaka is referred to initially as a vampire, something that drinks blood, eats the livers and hearts of men, is humanoid but not human. And Croker, being a physician, as it were, he can tell by seeing the bones later on that it's not exactly human. But I think it's One Eye clarifies that a Forvalaka is not really a vampire; it's a wereleopard, and they're basically invincible. They're basically indestructible. They're basically immortal, and the only way to deal with them is to bury them alive, which is just what the city of Beryl did to 49 of these things in ancient times.
I have no idea how they could possibly capture 49 of these incredibly indomitable creatures.
They were gullible.
Hey, if you go in there, no way. I mean, it's super powerful magic. There's no other way to explain it.
Mm-hmm. They did. They put 49 Forvalaka in this tomb, and then they sealed it with magic. And that's when we get to
the lightning bolt that came out of the blue that blasted half of the magical wards off of that tomb. During the rioting, which we're talking about right now, some ding-dong got the bright idea to go and raid that tomb under the guise of chaos when nobody's taking a look. Let's just go see. Let's go bust open there and see what treasures lie within. Oh, okay. That's a good idea. So pickaxe, tool marks, whatever it is. Humans break into the tomb, busting through the rest of whatever was protecting the city from the one remaining Forvalaka.
yes,
The smartest, the most cunning, the most vicious female Forvalaka that killed all of her kin to survive.
and ate them.
And then stacked their bones like a crazy bitch.
Is the fact that she is, or that the Forvalaka is female, is that also part of the thing? I mean,
that's questionable, man. I just don't know.
I'm not sure it is. I'm not sure if it's important, but
No, I'm not either.
I mean, something that took care of the other 49, it wouldn't have mattered if it was male, or the fact that it was female made it.
It's a detail that's mentioned by the author, but whether it's significant or not, I honestly don't remember. But a lot of the book is kind of a mystery until you get to subsequent chapters anyway, so it may become more relevant, but I don't remember it being relevant. But yeah, she's bad news. She's bad news. She looks like a 30-year-old woman.
yeah. So I don't remember how long it lasts, but the Forvalaka is just preying upon the city at random, and I don't remember how long this period lasts, but I was under the impression it lasted for several weeks or a few weeks.
Long enough for the chaos to die down out of sheer terror.
Yeah, people started shutting themselves in. Not that it helped, but it kept them off the streets. And one other thing they did talk about in the book is that they started getting plague associated with Forvalaka attacks. And they didn't elaborate, but it's implied that there's a correlation, but there's not a consistent correlation.
Yeah, there would be like a ring of plague surrounding areas where the Forvalaka had killed somebody. But I think Croker dismisses the possibility that the Forvalaka is the actual vector because Why? I don't remember. Oh, because they'd been into the tomb where the Forvalaka was, and none of them got sick.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because several Black Company people went in the tomb, and nobody got sick. That's right.
So yeah. So there's a suspicion right there.
There's something else going on.
Something else is going on, exactly. Like chaos is building upon chaos, like it's not going quite as fast as somebody may have wanted it. So they're adding to the mess. Don't know. It's hard to say. But the chaos triggers. Okay, so the Black Company knows that there's a Forvalaka loose. They thought it was a myth. They thought it was a tale to keep people in the city in line. So they decide to go up to the tomb, and that's when they see the bones. And oh boy, there were 49 of them, and there's only the bones of 48. One of them's on the loose. They confirm it, and then they decide to get the hell out of there. They're like, no. The wizards are like, yeah, our master could not handle a young male.
Yeah, they had two wizards there that are quite powerful in their own right. And they tell the story they're two brother wizards, and they tell the story about from their homeland, their master, who's more powerful than them, could not handle one Forvalaka.
And it was a young male.
That's young. One Eye and Tom Tom.
Yeah,
yes,
One Eye and Tom Tom.
One Eye and Tom Tom.
Two brothers.
Yep. Over 100 years old, according to the records of the historians in the Black Company.
Yeah.
And powerful. But you don't really see how powerful in this chapter. But, okay, so they basically have seen enough. The Black Company knows that between the enemies that they have in the military, the numbers of people that they've just lost, the fact that this legate is out in we never talked about why the legate was there. And they know at this point.
They don't know yet, do they?
I think they do.
Have we gotten back to where we find out?
Well, we'll get there real quick then.
Yeah. I think that's what's coming next right now.
There are a lot of things, basically, that have built up so far in the chapter that the Black Company's become aware of, and they're like, we have got to get out of here. Our commission is...
Final nail is what the legate has offered them.
That hasn't happened yet.
That hasn't happened.
Oh, that's just about to happen, is what you're saying.
Well, yeah, the preamble for meeting with the legate is that they have a discussion about
their options,
resigning their commission, because it's stay and die honorably or leave and break their contract, which kind of undermines their reputation.
The syndic is pressuring them this whole time to quell the rioting in the streets, and they are pointing out the fact that they're not a police force. They're a private bodyguards essentially for him, and they don't want to die here. They don't want to be martyred.
So they do have this discussion, and it's a moral question or ethical question, but it's also about their reputation. And Croker, who's their historian, said, no, we cannot give up our commission. It's a bad idea. The one time we did it in the past, it was our darkest time ever, and it hung with them for a long time. It took them who knows how long to build up their reputation again. And so, but
they're in their darkest time right now.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a very important part, how they're more than willing to let their morality slip and find a convenient loophole to get them out of their commission.
Yep.
And so then
that's what Croker says. If you can find one, then I'll go along.
I'll support it.
He's kind of like the linchpin that's gonna make sure it happens.
He's gonna cherry top it too, he writes the history.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Right. So the captain, they don't explain how they get this idea, but they go and see the legate on their ship. And they row out there and they marvel at this ship. And I think the lieutenant used to be a ship boy or something like that. And he said it's not possible this ship would break apart. It's no way it can stick together. And that's when One Eye or Tom Tom?
I think it was Tom Tom.
Said that, yeah, with a sufficient amount of magical power, you can hold this amazing vessel together.
And obviously they are.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
But it gives you an idea also
who you're dealing with. Somebody on that ship is powerful. And powerful enough to make the Wizards of the Black Company kind of quake a little bit,
But they do make a deal. I don't think you really understand what the deal is specifically. I don't think they really understand what the deal.
I think there's a parlaying going on just a little bit.
They dance around each other.
Pardon me?
Oh, I'm sorry. They dance around each other with wordplay.
Yeah, so they come back with an offer, if I remember correctly, and then the captain sends them back with another one. And not only that, during this whole time, he was trying to like give up being the captain.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, no, you're going to be the captain.
Nope. It's a life.
Stay.
Yeah. Forever.
So, and like anytime something goes wrong, it seems like later on, it's like, you made me the captain. This is your fault, you know?
Live with it. Live with it.
Yeah, exactly. You can't bitch about it now.
So we're not really given the direct details. Like Uel said, the captain does send a counteroffer, which obviously is met with some success. But I think the next thing that really happens is we've got Croker on the wall doing guard duty at the White Tower, which is the home of the Syndic and his family and all of his entourage. And that Forvalaka comes creeping over the wall. I do believe that's the next thing that happens.
Yeah.
And I mean, that would, oh, goodness gracious, that would scare me. I know that.
Did you get a good shot of it, or does he just hear it happen?
No, he sees it. He sees the red eyes and the liquid.
All the time, right?
He says it pours itself over the wall. No, he saw it. He saw it come in and go into the tower. And that's when.
Then he started hearing the screams.
Yeah.
No.
Ooh. All right. So what follows is an extraordinary kind of game of cat and mouse between a very well-organized military group in a very confined space trying to track down this were-leopard that is running amok in a tower, going from level to level, slaughtering everybody.
Everyone.
And the wizards, they get together, and all three of them together, they put together a spell that precedes them. Doesn't really clarify what it does, do they?
It either protects them or it's imprint. It pushes.
It felt like it was like a force blast or something. If you can,
a force field. I think the purpose of that spell or that group spell was to make sure that the Forvalaka did not get past them.
I see. Yeah, but they say something about speeding up or something like that, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I don't remember. I think they said the Forvalaka was just like super fast.
Yes.
Right.
Didn't need silvered weapons to kill it. Just needed to be able to hit it, which was the challenge in itself. So we've got this group of the Black Company with pole arms and shields and crossbowmen, tightly organized, going upstairs, rounding corners, going through hallways, sealing the doors behind them so that the Forvalaka cannot escape through. They want to force the damn thing through a particular path. And that's where all these weapons are ready for it. And when they do finally find the thing, I mean, it is a mess. I seem to recall that they surprised it with the spell, and then it decided to just jump in among them.
Yeah, just jump right in the middle of the whole company.
In a flash, there were 6 of them dead, and Tom was torn apart. They said he had wounds down to the bone in his arms and his chest, and Croker said there was nothing. The filthy claws of that creature.
Ugh.
Clean it as you might, but he knew there was nothing he could do for Tom.
Well, all right, so yeah, he's like, hey, you got to come on over here. One Eye's like, hey, get over here and look at Tom.
His brother.
And then he's like, oh man, that gash in his leg, that's going to be dirty. And then he sees, and he's like ripped. And somehow he's still alive.
Yeah, and the Forvalaka just gets away. It disengages from them, and in the chaos, they don't know where it went.
They had got it down. They were sticking it.
Yeah.
And with swords and stuff, and then it still got away.
Well,
got away.
It did, but if you remember, they had stuck a rear guard next to the entrance to make sure it didn't get out and get past them.
Mhm.
And I think it was the lieutenant. And then lieutenant put a little heat on it and kept it inside the building. And so they knew it was still there. Do you remember that?
I remember that it didn't go out the way that they were expecting it to go out.
Yes.
And when they finally determined that it wasn't in the building, they realized because of the blood trail that it had gone out one of the windows and down the outside of the tower.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it did retreat for sure.
But not before it slaughtered almost everybody in the tower.
Yeah.
Almost everybody.
So let's get to the point where why was it in the tower?
Well, it was,
Well, we know why.
yeah.
We know why.
Yeah. 'Cause spoiler, we read the book. Sorry.
So why? Oh wait, we don't want to say that right now.
That we read the book?
No, that what it was doing in the tower.
Well, we know why it was there. It was there to kill the Syndic.
Well, I mean, we know that.
It was there to kill the Syndic. But
Because
did it?
they even mention it. They even mention it in when they started approaching the bodies in the tower. It wasn't exsanguinating them. It wasn't pulling out their hearts and livers. It was just killing them and moving on. So
As
it was not.
opposed to all the other ones, like in the tomb.
It wasn't feeding.
It was not feeding.
It was killing.
And it had a single purpose.
And they knew, the Black Company knew its purpose. They understood that this was the means by which the Black Rider had made arrangements to rid them of their contract as a favor.
So that
Somehow.
Really a favor if they lose almost
I
all.
don't know. I don't know if it was a favor, if it was a condition of the agreement that they would, whatever. We're not quite there yet. It was somehow this is how it played out based on the knowledge that in order to get out of their contract, their captain knew the Syndic had to die. The Forvalaka ends up trying to do that for them, and he didn't make a deal with the Forvalaka. He made a deal with the Black Rider. So you can infer all you want, but it sounds like the Black Rider has a little bit of control over that Forvalaka.
All right.
Which goes right back to paragraph 2, sentence 1, when that bolt of lightning comes out of the sky, clear blue sky, bolt of lightning basically releases the damn thing. So did that bolt of lightning come from the Black Rider? Very possibly. Very possibly. So now the Black Company is searching for their contract holder. They can't find his body anywhere. There's nowhere to be seen. All of the dead, some of their dead that were the bodyguards of him, the Syndic's bodyguards, were Black Company members. They're dead. No Syndic. Until, where'd they find him, Uel?
Chest.
Yeah.
What was it like? It was, what do they say? It was like 500 pounds or something like that. And it would have been like ornate, except of all the blood and gashing and stuff going on around it recently.
The Forvalaka knew he was in there. It's a strong box made out of stone.
Right.
500 pounds or something. And it's destroyed. The ornament of it was destroyed by the claws of the Forvalaka. So it was unable to get into him, but knew exactly where he was.
And then the Black Company chased him off, and then they found the Syndic hiding in that chest.
Lying on a pile of money. On a pile of money, like Scrooge McDuck. It's like on it. So it's not real clear, as I recall. And I read it a couple times, but it's not real clear. But the next thing we know, they find the guy, they open up the chest, they see him in there, and then
Croker turns away for a minute.
Just a second. He just turns like whoop, whoop. And then the lid is closed, and there's a guy sitting on it cleaning his fingernails with a dagger.
The other guys are like looking kind of suspicious or something like that.
If you're cleaning your fingernails with a dagger, yeah, it's pretty suspicious.
Yeah, he says
that's a trope, by the way. If ever there was one, man, that's a trope.
He Croker asked himself if who was it? It was the captain and Elmo, and it was Match who was sitting on top of the crate.
Yeah.
And Croker thinks to himself whether or not they would have finished the Forvalaka's job, and he's all, they wouldn't betray the company's reputation that way, would they? And he's like, no. And he's like, could he?
Maybe.
And then it's important. This is very important right here. He's all, I did not ask.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously this is not a story written by J.R.R. Tolkien. Obviously.
Yeah, he knew. They murdered their contract holder, and he turned a blind eye.
Personally, I think it was Elmo, but that's based on foreknowledge of other stuff that happens in the book later on. But I'm guessing it was Elmo, although I know it's never been revealed in the book. All right, so that was the fight of the four Valaka, and I don't think they stopped there. I think they were like, let's go now. Now is the time, and they literally packed that night, and they're on the road.
Yes,
in the middle of the night.
Oh, you know, I remember what one of those negotiations were. They were talking about if they got out of their contract, what they would do, because everybody's so crazy to like kill these guys and stuff.
Yeah.
And so there's like this peninsula, right?
Yeah.
Where the ship is going to come and pick them up.
Yes.
And they say, oh man, we're going to be sitting duck out there.
Yes.
And that's when all that transferring of information goes back and forth and stuff.
That's right. The legate promised to once they got out of their contract to head to this location.
Okay.
And he would pick them up.
Yep.
And they said, okay, thus implying that he was then going to accept. He wanted the black company to work for him at that point. He would accept their commission to work for him to do whatever else. And they were okay with that, but they were very, very nervous because, that little peninsula was a death trap. And they mentioned it was just wormholes of caves, but there was nowhere to go. And all the urban cohorts had to do is just sit out there and wait for them to starve to death.
Yep.
That's if the legate betrayed them. So,
or was even just delayed.
Or even delayed. That's right. Yeah.
Which leads us to one of, I think, the darkest moments of the Black Company, personally.
But dark in a good way.
Dark in a very good way, but nevertheless, just brutal, just absolutely brutal. Because the Black Company, they don't just pack their stuff and leave town. No, they pack up the wagon train and they send it on down the road, and they're like, "We'll catch up to you." 4 platoons of these guys, which could amount to about 400 soldiers. We're not real sure. But 4 platoons of these guys were like, hey, let's go pay a visit to this urban cohort. It is 3 o'clock in the morning after all. They won't see us coming. What are you doing, Uel?
3 platoons.
3 platoons. Okay, so 300 guys, maybe?
Because one died. They lost 1 platoon.
Okay. Nevertheless, they take these 3 platoons. They let their baggage train go on down to the coast, to that peninsula, and they go in and they see the urban cohort. And the guards are asleep. Everybody's asleep. The commanders have gotten them back under control after days and days and days of chaos and have convinced them to relinquish all their weapons and return them to the armory because they don't trust them. Smart. So the Black Company, they split up.
They go one barracks after another, killing every single person.
6,000 people. 6,000 unarmed, sleeping men. Just give them that. But if you think
they're honorable, right?
Well,
no, that was a safety precaution. That was
tactical.
Covering their ass.
Oh yeah, that's important. That's right.
It's not personal, right?
It wasn't.
It was not personal.
It probably was a little personal.
Maybe a little personal.
Actually, it was tactical. Because he says that it's a little bit of rage for having been here for as long as they had, being inactive
and mistreated the entire time. They had problems with the urban cohort the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
So there was definitely some people that relished it.
Yes, well,
or at least aggression.
Some of the people in the Black Company, and they're not necessarily nice people. I mean, Mercy definitely died at one point. I don't remember how he died. Was it the 4 Valaka that killed him? He died in a scrap. No, it was when they were trying to. Mercy died when they were trying to retreat. When 100 people died and they were trying to retreat during the beginning of the chaos. That's when Mercy died. But Mercy was not a nice guy. And many of the Black Company are not nice people.
So this is just to get a little sidetracked, one of the things I really like about this book is like the nicknames they assign their soldiers. You don't know what their real names are. They made up all these names, or they were assigned these names. Like Croker, I mean, that's the ship's physician. Talk about a bad luck name. And then Mercy,
who has none.
Who
obviously.
has none. Silent, which is appropriate. But Tom, who had his little drum.
One
Curly
eye.
was
Has one
bald.
eye.
Yeah, it may not be creative, but sometimes it's really entertaining, and that's again a little element of creativity on the part of the author that makes kind of every character a little unique.
And also, on a side note, this is one of the ways in which Steven Erikson is very obviously a fan of this book. I don't think there's a character in a Steven Erikson novel that actually has a real name. They're all, the military guys were all named thusly, Fiddler, So it's not, they don't want to have a fighting retreat. That's really what we're getting at. They didn't want to be sieged when they were on the peninsula, waiting for possibly days for 400 men to be taken out to the boat, a couple of dinghies at a time, six dinghies. So they killed all of the urban cohort, all of them, and safely retreated to the beach, got onto the ship, said goodbye to all the hangers-on and the, what do they call those people?
Oh, camp followers.
Camp followers.
And they
Girlfriends? No, because they're talking. Croker specifically talks about the lady that he's with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they
put down roots immediately.
They knew they weren't going to stick around forever, but even still, especially this time, he's kind of choking up about it. But
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it was pretty sudden. I mean, they may have known for a week or two, but they didn't really know. When it happened, it was instant. They had to go.
Yeah, and I think this is actually an important part of, like, I guess, again, character development for Croker, is he doesn't really emphasize himself, but clearly this was a very important woman in his life at that time, and he never mentioned her before until right then, and he said he got choked up when he said goodbye. Because this is not supposed to be Croker's story. This is the story of the Black Company. That's why he left it out.
No. Yes.
Does that make sense?
It's something that happened to all of them, but that was his personal experience. He gave her all of the money that he had, too. And then got on that ship. And next thing you know, the soldiers of the Black Rider are in the city taking over. We've got the Black Company on the Black ship being introduced to this gentleman who One Eye and Tom, they knew who this guy was. His name is Soulcatcher, and we'll get there in just a minute. But Soulcatcher is going to each and every one of them. And by the time he's finished pinning every single soldier in the Black Company with this little emblem that's on the sail, the skull with the circlet, he pins every single one of them, and they're on the way. The ship is underway before he's done, and it's sun up.
Yeah, and they do mention that this little I don't know what you would call it.
It's an insignia.
It's an insignia, but they say it's not. I mean, they say it's valuable. I mean, it's not just a piece of cloth. I mean, it's actually a valuable piece of jewelry.
Yeah, I think they say something about One Eye would,
avarice. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, but the significance of this piece of jewelry only dawns on Croker when he's being pinned, and that this is the insignia of a famous character known as the Lady. And the last 2 or 3 paragraphs of this chapter are a very brief history of a period of time called the Domination, where there was a very powerful man called the Dominator, his lady, and 10 wizards who opposed them, who were later subdued and taken, of which Soulcatcher is merely one.
Made them slaves.
And all 10 of them, those 10 who opposed the Dominator and his lady, they were all demigods in their own right. But the 10 of them were incapable of stopping the Dominator. And that is basically the end of the chapter. That is the introduction to the Black Company. That should give you a flavor for what is to come, the brutality. Oh, my God, it's amazing. I love this book like no other.
I know. Gallows humor, all of it.
So
there's also a little simple fact that at the end of the book, also we find out that in a cage,
Oh, right.
by the mast is another Forvalaka.
not the same one.
Not the same one, because eventually One Eye and Croaker are by it, and they're kind of like examining it, I guess, and they're like, dude, this is not, it doesn't have any marks on it whatsoever. I guess they can't tell if one's male or female.
They could. It was female.
Oh,
They're both females.
Yeah. Great. We know how they are. Female Forbalakas, I mean, FFs.
Brutal, yeah. But this one was unscarred, undamaged, unwounded. Not the same one. And there's something cryptic that he says at the end that One Eye never figured it out, and he didn't bother to tell him.
Which totally contradicts the fact that Mercy was like, hey, you never leave anything out.
Yeah, exactly.
And so already there's like...
You're right. Yeah, no.
That's a lie.
That's an astute observation.
And he's also put himself in the story when he's talking about his lady. And, that's interesting. But he did, have to use a sword at one time. So.
Oh, so good. So good.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is a very long-winded summary of the first chapter.
Yeah, you probably could have read the first chapter in the amount of time we took talking about it. But you wouldn't get the panache and the excitement.
Yeah, you wouldn't understand how excited we are about this novel. But importantly, okay, so that's the summary, essentially. So now, thoughts. Like, we three have not sat down and talked about this novel in any length. We've individually read it, and we've been preparing for this day in the form of homework and reading and taking notes and etc. So now's our chance to sit down and discuss what we think just happened. Mm-hmm. For one, I want to know about the Forvalaka. What is the significance of there being a second Forvalaka on that ship in a cage?
Well, it can't be controlled, so it's still in a cage.
Well, maybe it takes control to control it, and you can only do that for so long. So between controlling, you put it in a cage. I don't know, but
maybe dominating.
Well, no, sorry. You came up with an interesting theory about how they were able to control that one Forvalaka in the city. They may have used this Forvalaka as leverage. You came up with that theory.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so like they're intelligent or something?
That is the theory, that somehow that this Forvalaka mm-hmm. is important to the other Forvalaka. And maybe there wasn't just one left. Maybe there were two. Maybe it's a mother and a daughter.
Maybe a mated pair.
Well, couldn't be a mated pair.
Well, I thought the other one was male.
They're both female.
Oh, okay. Then I don't know.
They're both female. But one could be a mother, one could be a daughter. It doesn't matter. But I think I'm very suspicious that they didn't. I mean, it's also possible that mm-hmm. they showed up with one just in case the one that was there wasn't enough. What if the Black Company actually killed it?
They could have.
And they could have. So, okay, release another one. They obviously released the first one. There's no question in my mind that was intended and that Soulcatcher did that. Soulcatcher probably even whispered mm-hmm. that there was jewels and wealth and privilege up in the tomb, suckered some dum-dum into going up there and mm-hmm. breaking the final seals.
So that gets into what we'd sort of talked about earlier is when Legate went there, how much of a plan did he actually have? What were his intentions? What did he want to accomplish? And how much was just kind of, like seeing how it goes and figuring it out. He definitely went there to take over that city, and he did it from his point of view bloodlessly.
He did. Okay, but they claimed all along, mm-hmm. or his claim all along was that they were simply there innocently looking for allies.
Because they needed ships.
Naval power. They needed naval power. We just want to be buddies. Mm-hmm. We have strong military might. You have strong naval might. Let's be friends. Mm-hmm. That was why he was there. The Syndic wasn't having any of it. He's like, nah, I don't like you. Mm-hmm. You got too much black clothing on. I don't like it.
That's exactly what the captain of the Black Company was like. Hey, you probably should take this deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was telling him straight away, take this deal or else it's not going to be good.
Well, what did he say? He said it was better to be an ally than a, what is it called? When you give, I'm thinking of Civilization, the game. Tribute. He said it was better to be an ally than a tributary.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
And that is true, because it's either you're dead or you're a slave or you're an ally. It's better to be an ally. But the Syndic had heard the rumors. The Syndic was aware. One Eye was aware. Tom was aware that the northern, and we're talking about this is where Soul Catcher comes from, is the north.
Mm-hmm.
The civilization to the north their reputation precedes them. They're brutal. They're horrible.
A great evil or something like that.
That is spreading. And that stuff gets revealed really later. But the rumors are there, and the Syndic was aware of these rumors, and he didn't want to ally with something this evil.
Well, it was very clear that Soul Catcher had been completely manipulating things from the very beginning. And what I don't understand is, did he have sights on getting the Black Company from the beginning?
That's a good question. I don't know.
All right. Or did he just opportunistically take charge of them and commission them? I don't know. With somebody like this, it could go either way, right? But, I mean, the Black Company plays such a pivotal part. And remember, there's something else about Soul Catcher. So when he speaks, he actually speaks in multiple voices, male, female,
young, old,
all different types.
He looks that way too.
What's that?
And he looks that way a little also.
He looks more feminine and small.
Right.
But the voices are definitely distinct.
Yeah.
Different people.
Mm-hmm. But you have somebody of this power and this wisdom and this used to getting his way. I wouldn't rule out that he wanted the city and he wanted the Black Company, and he manipulated all of them to get what he wanted.
Yeah, I would say that's very reasonable.
And he did it bloodlessly.
Yep.
And
he didn't lift a finger.
Well, he didn't lift a, yeah, exactly. He did not lift a finger. He just got other people to fight for them so he gets what he wants.
Yeah.
And when they're discovering who the Legate is, Soul Catcher, and this is on the ship after being pinned and all this other stuff, and they realize what they've done. They realize that they're in they're in a bad situation.
Well, then you think
signed up with.
Yeah,
that's an understatement.
No kidding.
Doesn't get any worse than this.
And as each step that they realize that they're getting deeper and deeper into it, as conversation is going on, they're like, hey, this is what's, blah, 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 Soul Catcher, this. Soul Catcher is just laughing maniacally each time and just kind of goading them along also.
I think they don't come out and say it, but the reason I think Soul Catcher is laughing is because members of the Black Company realize for the first time that this commission is for the rest of their lives.
Yeah,
you don't leave.
Well, I mean, even some of the times when something is being thought by Croker, he gets that answered by Soul Catcher also, if I remember correctly.
Reading his mind.
A few times. Maybe just realizing that you realize it.
I think it happens once.
Yeah,
and
just once, yeah.
He responded to something that Croker had been thinking, yeah. I don't remember what it was specifically.
But you're right.
I do. It was when he was he was like, oh shit, this person's this person. And he's like, huh? Yeah.
The captain's like, tell me what's up. And then he tells the story about the Dominators and all that stuff.
Oh, that's right.
So the question, there's another question that I have actually. It's not the question, but why didn't One Eye say anything?
Because Croker,
I know it's bad for the story. I understand that.
The wizards always like to keep secrets.
They do like to keep secrets.
Then they don't want to let you know.
But it got his brother killed, and it got him basically indentured for the rest of his life.
Oh, and that's the other thing that's so tragic about this, because his brother is dead.
Yeah.
There's a moment where they're getting to the ship, and One Eye's like, see you later, guys. I'm done.
Yeah, he tries to bail.
I'm going to go back south maybe they won't remember me anymore. I mean,
That's the best.
100.
That's the best. He's 100 years old, and he's been on the run from the South for something that he did for who knows how long. He's like, maybe they've forgotten by now. I'm going home. And they're like,
So
no.
they all are like, no. And they up, 1, 2, 3, throw them over. And there's a moment where Croker's like, it was nice to see One Eye showing a little spunk. No, this didn't want to go. It wasn't showing spunk.
Year-old man, and they throw him in the boat.
He's like, my brother's dead. I don't want to be here anymore. You guys can all go have fun. But they're like, nope, you're in the family. You're in the family is what they say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They built both of those characters, though, as not liking the water, if you recall.
Yeah, they did say that. Both the twins didn't like the water. They probably were like, when they were enslaved, they probably...
And they're going back north. They're crossing an ocean.
Yeah.
So
somewhere where they know because, yeah.
Well, there's a lot of reasons not to want to go north, but they're all going together, one big happy family. I would say the people that got off easiest would be the camp followers, because they got the benefit of knowing the black company, not being killed, and they got to stay put. But this is how.
Oh yeah, but there's a plague going on too right now, because they talk about
that was they minorly emphasized
being the designator of the disease that's going around the city.
Well, it's like Stamp says over here is, I think that Soul Catcher was just adding more fuel to the fire. I think he was exploiting the Forvalaka attacks to maybe put plague there, or somebody was, to just really stir the pot a little bit more and make it crazy to keep people's attentions elsewhere, to keep them scrambled and afraid,
or even as a way to explain the deaths instead of the Forvalaka. I mean, it's kind of confusing to me. It might have been an afterthought also, like it might not actually matter. But regardless of the fact of whether or not there's a plague in the city, this is how that empire spreads. And it's here now. It's here forever. And as we'll see in Chapter 2, this is not a normal empire at all.
Oh, and what we didn't mention is that there was the Dominator.
Spoilers?
No, no, it's not.
Okay.
And the Dominated, which is the 10 most powerful wizards, demigods, the Taken. All right, that was, I think they said it was like 300 years ago, right?
Yeah.
It was like, it wasn't like, it's not concurrent in that sense. It happened 300 years ago, and I think they implied that they're surprised that they're figuring it out and they're coming. They didn't realize they were still alive. I don't know. They didn't say that very well.
It's a very good last couple of pages. The reveal is just really good. Somebody, I think it's revealed later on that it's an archaeologist, maybe. Somebody accidentally released them.
Oh, that's right.
It's in here.
They were bound.
They were bound by a very powerful woman at one point.
Or the Dominator. Yeah, that's right. It was an archaeologist.
Oh, here we go. Okay, so we weren't destroyed, just chained and buried alive. His laughter had a hysterical edge. Chained, buried, and eventually liberated by a fool named Bowman's Croker. So that's what happened. They got released. It's not real specific about when, but it was a long time ago. And it's like it had been so long that it had receded into legend. And then this guy Bowman's comes along and releases them on accident somehow. And then there goes that world.
Yep. Well, he was interested in history and academics, and he released them on accident.
Yep.
Great. Good job there, buddy.
Good job. All right. So what else we got?
I don't know. I think I'm done.
I'm done too.
I'm done with all my talking points.
So the lightning bolt was from Soul Catcher.
I think so.
Or one of his intermediaries. Something. Yes. In one means or another, he did that on purpose.
As of right now, at least, we don't know of anybody else capable of doing that. Soul Catcher is the only wizard we're aware of on that ship. He's obviously very powerful, and it was a bolt of lightning out of a clear blue sky. Not exactly a natural occurrence. So I'm pretty much 90%. Yeah, it was Soul Catcher did that.
Yeah. He was just, again, manipulating circumstances to achieve his ends.
Yeah, I think so. and just a nice plot, you know? Like, that's a plot, in my opinion, without really any holes. It's just a good, and it's not even a novel. That is literally a preface.
Okay, so I asked you that before, and I know you didn't know, but I'll throw it out there for anybody that can answer if they care to. This has a very nice, tight feeling, like it may have been in like a magazine or something at one time. Was this written with that kind of concept, and that it would just build as chapter? Because I mean, I don't know. I didn't read everything. So I don't know how the future goes in the writing.
You mean you haven't finished this book yet?
No, the series.
Man. I don't know. Like, I would say by this point in his career, he was writing novels. He wasn't writing for magazines that I'm aware of. I know he has 2 stories published in magazines, but he was not a big journal writer.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing he wrote this to be a novel.
All right.
That's a guess.
I
really don't know.
As I've read it, a few times, I just feel that there's a nice little, I mean, it's good. It's a good first chapter.
It is a whole, it is a great short story all in its own right.
Yeah, exactly. I like that aspect of it too.
Yeah, no, I do too.
I wrote down all the names that I think I caught of the characters you were talking about.
Did you get Elmo?
I did, yeah. So I've got Croaker, obviously. One Eye.
Yeah.
And just the company characters.
Yeah.
There's the lieutenant and the captain. Curly, Pokey, Wall-Eyed, and Wild Bruce died. They were the poisoned ones.
Yeah.
Wild Bruce.
There's, did I say Whitey?
I don't think so.
There's Mercy. Mercy died.
Yeah. Well, we're not 100%. He said
it seemed like Mercy died, but okay.
Mercy wasn't gonna pull through.
He was asked a few times. Like, there was like every time he met with the captain, he's like, "How's Mercy doing?" He's all, "It seemed pretty. I mean, he's pretty bad. I think he's gonna die, but I've seen miracles."
Yeah.
And then they asked him again, and it still didn't sound good. Silent. That's the bee one, the bee magician.
Hornet.
Tom, he carried a drum fetish, they called it.
Yeah.
He died. Goblin, Candy, Match, and Elmo.
Goblin's a wizard, right?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. I might have missed a couple, but
they talked about Goblin being a lawyer in his past life until he moved up to pimping.
He moved up to pimping.
So how dare you call me a lawyer?
Yeah, I remember that. Oh man. So who died so far? Like, who died while we were reading? Ignoring the poisoned people, we lost Mercy,
Tom,
Wild Bruce.
No, those are poisoned people.
Not those guys.
These people died in this chapter.
Okay.
There were 100 unnamed people.
Oh, well, yeah. And then maybe one more because of the Mole's Tavern.
There's 106 people died.
No, nobody died in the tavern.
It said that guy.
It said he was hurt.
And under his shield.
He went down.
Right.
It said he went down, and then
then Croaker fills the area. You're right. He might not have died.
No, but after they've calmed everything down, it said Duker.
Oops.
Yeah, you did it. Oops. Yeah, you did it. Don't say anything yet. Don't.
Croaker tended his wounded man. The wounded man.
Yeah.
So they only had one wounded, and he said he tended him, and they left it at that.
Die.
All right.
So we lost a couple, diminished, but on a ship heading north.
Yeah, good.
There was. Oh, you go ahead. There's also twice that he mentioned vultures evicting eagles from their perch.
And eagle.
Yeah, and eagle. You're right. 2 times though, but yeah.
Which is one of the the very first 2 pages are filled with omens that they should have recognized as portents. And then hindsight, they realized, oh. Okay.
Well, and of course he's kind of demeaned it because, who really, pays attention to that kind of stuff.
Hindsight's 20/20, bro. Anybody can do that and be like, oh my God, this meant that this was gonna happen.
In fact, it's funny you say hindsight. This I don't know why I wrote it. He had marvelous hindsight.
Yeah.
Yeah, they call them one eye. Yeah, one eye's handicap in no way impairs his marvelous hindsight. That's
Right, yeah.
brilliantly said.
Yes, and obviously a dig.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to chapter 2. Personally, I'm going to hold off on reading it until right before we do the next podcast or the next recording session for the podcast. I'm going to spend the next week editing this and putting up online, and then we'll have a episode 1. Episode 2, Raven, that's a person's name. Episode 2, we'll sit down and try to record as soon as we can humanly possibly, but I'm leaving town and etc. So it's probably going to be a month before we can do it.
That's horrible.
Whatever. The internet doesn't have a schedule. And it's not like we got people waiting on our bated breath, right?
Oh, there might be.
Yeah,
There might be.
There's one of you
So
out
please,
there.
Leave
right
all
now.
your comments.
Tell me right now.
Good, bad, ugly.
No bad, no ugly. We don't No, just be nice. And okay, but the point of this whole story, the reason that we're doing this is because we love the Black Company and we love the Steven Erikson series that we're going to get to eventually. But we want to be able to talk to other people that have the same likes and dislikes as us, like people that are reading this book. Hopefully there are people who will eventually be reading along with us that can participate in chat, talk to us, ask us questions, put forth theories, help us to see the book in a way that we don't see on our own because we're just 3 guys,
And not only that, there is a void of podcasts that are fantasy related that aren't George R.R. Martin related or Lord of the Rings or this is a classic that should be known by more people.
I agree. This is a gem and people don't know about it.
Underappreciated for sure.
Very well written book. I mean, just it's good stuff. Real good. And he's not like talking about food all day long either.
Right. Right. So you read the book. Join us. We're on social media, so
you can listen to it on YouTube.
Listen to it on YouTube or wherever the heck we can publish it as a podcast.
I mean, the book is on YouTube.
The book itself is?
Yeah.
Now read the damn book.
Read it. Yes,
read it. Buy a copy because it's still in print. Thank God. Buy a copy. Read it. And then come talk to us about what you thought of it. If you think we're wrong, tell me why you think you're wrong, but let me know you're wrong. You are wrong because it's really good.
I got scared there.
I do love this book. No, don't you tell me you don't like this book. I swear to God.
All right, moving forward. As in,
no, we're done.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to let people know where they can reach you?
Nah, we'll put that stuff in the description.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I don't remember, man. I don't know how to.
Don't know Paper Goldmine on Instagram? Follow Paper Goldmine on Instagram.
It's a bookstore, dude. It's not really It'll be in the description.
He shows great science fiction fantasy books that he picks up and eventually will sell.
Yeah, well, if people actually care about our commentary, I'll probably actually start reading more. And
which is to say that he didn't read the chapter.
I did read the chapter.
No, he didn't.
While since he read the chapter.
I've only read 1 book.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah,
twice.
Me too.
This is the second time. The second book I've ever read twice. And I'll tell you what, I'm glad I did because it's so much more insightful.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So much more insightful. A book this complex, you have to read it twice.
Worth it.
Yep.
Definitely worth it. All right, thanks, guys, for hanging out. Sorry for the... We're wordy. We get it.
Yeah.
We know. But that's kind of the point of a podcast, right?
Yeah, we like hearing our
That's okay. They're bored. They'll do it.
They'll do it.
I'll listen.
Uel, thanks a lot. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here if I can figure out how. Alt-R, I believe it is.
Alt-R.
More. Pause recording.